again to the War Industry Resistors Network webinar. Many of you have been at our other webinars, I think. And so you know that we've been around for about 2.5 years. We've been doing monthly webinars, and this is actually our 28th webinar, so over 2 years now. You may also know that our previous webinars have been on the role of war corporations, think tanks, media, universities, all the various tentacles of the military-industrial complex. We've had webinars on the militarization and colonization of our borderlands, which is a hot topic these days, as it has been. Cop City, the war in Ukraine, genocide in Gaza, on and on. And you can find the recordings of all of our webinars on our website. I'm going to put the link to our website here in a minute. And you can find the videos of the Merchants of Death War Crimes Tribunal on our website as well, if you've been following them. They've done something like 18 different video interviews with people. So that's well worth looking at too. So just to let you know that we have another webinar scheduled, I think it's April 18th. And it is about, it's with Jeremy Kuzmarov, who is the managing editor of Covert Action, the online magazine. And he'll be talking about how the US media has conditioned Americans to hate Russia for the last 100 years. So that's something we know, and he's an expert on. He's a historian, so he'll have a lot to say about that. So let me get started. I'm going to introduce Frank here. Frank Panopoulos is our presenter tonight, and the topic is robotic warfare, the dangerous new artificial intelligence race. So Frank's a human rights attorney. He's worked for nonviolence, peace, and justice since 1979. He recently published an article entitled "Pentagon Aims to Create a Human Machine Soldier as Part of Dangerous New Artificial Intelligence Race." That's how we got onto him, because of the article. Frank has spent time in prison for acts of nonviolent civil disobedience, including 2 Plowshares Actions in the 1980s, AVCO and Trident II. His current work includes representing prisoners held at Guantanamo Bay Prison and in Florida state prisons, and anti-drone war litigation. So we're very pleased to have Frank with us, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Frank. Go ahead.
Thanks, Ken. So let me just get started. Welcome, everyone. And tonight I'll talk a bit about the human machine soldier, robotic warfare, and the artificial intelligence race. And I'll make this presentation available to everybody in a PDF form. I'll send it to Ken, and he'll distribute it to all of you and to his network. So no worries about wanting to see these slides again, because you'll receive them in an email. Before I start, I'd like to just have us remember Archbishop Oscar Romero. Archbishop Romero was the Bishop of San Salvador in El Salvador, and he was a victim of the U.S. Military policy. In February of 1980, he wrote a letter to then President Jimmy Carter, really demanding that the U.S. stop sending military equipment and advisors to train the Salvadoran military, because the Salvadoran military was using the weapons and the advisors to repress the Salvadoran population and to kill people in roaming death squads. About a month after he wrote this letter, Romero himself was assassinated. And so I just would like us to remember him. The anniversary of his assassination is coming up this Sunday, on March 24th. So Oscar Romero, we remember you. The order of my presentation tonight is first I'll speak a little bit about what artificial intelligence is in general, and then I'll talk about the threat that artificial intelligence poses, and then I'll talk about artificial intelligence as the future of warfare. I'll talk about brain-computer interfaces as they are used by the military. I'll talk about the military's projects for developing super soldiers, and then I'll talk about robots and lethal autonomous weapons systems in warfare and current warfare, and then end with a bit on the AI arms race that's underway and the tech billionaires that are driving the AI technology. So to begin, J.C.R. Licklider who was the director of the Advanced Research Project Agency in 1963 to 64, was pretty much the first scientist to advocate the human-machine merger. You know, in his article, Man-Computer Symbiosis, he posited that human brains and computing machines should be coupled together because the resulting partnership would think and process data in a way that no human brain could. Licklider was a pioneer of the ARPANET, which eventually became the internet. He helped develop it, and obviously ARPA was the precursor to current DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. So this idea of merging human brains with computing machines goes back, you know, at least 60 years. And since that time, DARPA has been at the forefront of researching and developing AI technologies. It boasts about this on its website. According to a Brookings Institute study, 87% of the value of federal contracts over the 5 years, 2017 to 2022, that have the term artificial intelligence in the contract description are with the Department of Defense. And as you know, a program manager of DARPA put it more bluntly, you know, his goal is to provide, you know, the military with an unfair advantage over the enemy. And that's the purpose of developing these AI technologies. And if you think about it, the mentality of developing an unfair advantage over an enemy means that you're instigating an arms race because, you know, the quote enemy, the other side, is going to want to overcome, you know, your advantage by developing its own advantage. And so you begin a tit for tat that basically is an arms race. And that's what's happening now with the development of advanced artificial intelligence technologies. So the Pentagon's artificial intelligence research and development spans the spectrum of warfare. It's at the service of the battlefield, of intelligence, and of cyber advantage. For example, in 2018, the Pentagon invested more than $2 billion in a 5-year AI Next campaign. Its 2024 budget request includes $1.8 billion just for AI development. And of course, within the larger $880 billion Pentagon budget, you have more than $100 billion that are dedicated, requested for cyber, IT, electronic warfare, and space capabilities. And all of these capabilities require an enhanced and a developed artificial intelligence to run them and to operate them. So artificial intelligence, just a very basic primer. Artificial intelligence is the construction of computer programs, basically algorithms, to do things typical of human intelligence, like reasoning, understanding language, navigating the visual world, manipulating objects. Machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence, and it's currently it's the dominant approach to artificial intelligence. The algorithms in machine learning rely on statistical programs to give the computer the ability to learn from the data that's inputted into the computer and progressively improve its performance through its tasks. Deep learning is a subfield of machine learning. Digital neural networks, basically interconnections of multiple processing units that are called nodes, are arranged in layers, and they're not programmed for which patterns to look for. Instead, the algorithms evaluate the data in different ways to identify patterns that seem meaningful. And then you have generative AI, which is the latest sort of development in artificial intelligence. And it's a subfield of deep learning. And generative AI creates new and original content rather than recognizing or analyzing existing data. So unlike machine learning algorithms that are programmed to make predictions based on a given set of data that's inputted into the computer, generative AI algorithms are designed to create new data. And this could be in the form of images, text, music, or even entire video clips. To give you an idea of the computing power of artificial intelligence, right? The latest iPhone 14 has a neural network processing unit capable of about 16 trillion operations a second. The fastest supercomputer in the world, the Department of Energy Oak Ridge Labs Frontier, is capable of about 2 million operations per second faster than the iPhone 14. And Google's quantum computer, Sycamore, is 158 million times faster than the Frontier supercomputer. And so you're talking about, huge amounts of operations, of instructions and computations, in seconds. And in order to do this, the computers that are running these AI programs use a vast amount of resources, and this is all done in what are called data centers, right? A data center is basically a complex of buildings that are spread out over acres of land that have stacks and stacks and stacks of servers, basically hard drives. As of 2021, there were 8,000 data centers in the world. A third of those were in the US, served by tens of millions of servers. Global data centers are estimated to consume about 4 times the amount of electricity that New York City is estimated to consume in 2027. So just think about that. Annually, 4 times the amount of electricity that New York City is estimated to use. And then a large data center can gobble up anywhere from 1 million to 5 million gallons of water a day. The water is necessary to cool these computers that are operating and get hot. Ground zero for data centers in the US now is Northern Virginia, right? According to the Boston Consulting Group, right, data centers currently represent about 2.5% of US electricity consumption. And potentially by 2030, data centers in the US could reach as high as 7.5% of US electricity consumption. And about a third of the world's hyperscale data centers are in Northern Virginia. And a hyperscale data center is a very large data center, at least 5,000 servers and at least 10,000 square feet in size. And it's no surprise that these would be located in Northern Virginia, because that's where the Pentagon is, that's where the CIA is, and that's where their satellite offices and the companies that serve them are. And so for any network or organization that organizes demonstrations at weapons companies should also think about organizing demonstrations at these data centers, not at the companies like Google or Microsoft, that use them, but at the actual data centers themselves, in order to raise consciousness and bring awareness of them and of their use. And they're mapped out, and so you can find them readily. The current key focus of DARPA in developing AI systems is trust. And the reason for that is that in order for the DARPA, the military wants to couple, to team, the term is team, wants to team humans with machines, right, in war fighting. And in order to do this, the human has to trust the machine. Of course, you wonder if the machine should also trust the human, because there's a presumption that we trust the humans but not the machines. But in any event, so DARPA looks, when it develops its artificial intelligence technologies, it looks at how trustworthy is the system, and it's based on 3 criteria. Does the artificial intelligence system operate competently? Does it do what it's supposed to do well? Does it interact appropriately with humans? In other words, can it understand what is being asked to do, and can we understand what it's telling us that it's doing? And does it behave, quote, ethically and, quote, morally? In other words, can it reason and make value judgments consistent with DARPA's ethics and morals? So in May of 2023, tech company executives and computer scientists issued a letter calling for an immediate 6-month pause on the training of AI systems more powerful than GPT-4, so that the risks of artificial intelligence could be better understood, right? GPT-4 is the basis for programs like ChatGPT. The letter was soon followed by a statement signed by tech executives and scientists that made the existential threat of artificial intelligence equivalent to the existential threat posed by nuclear war and global pandemics. And these alarming statements apparently were issued, in early May of 2023, because testing of GPT-4 revealed that it was strikingly close to human-level performance, and that it could be used to, among other things, provide information useful for planning nuclear, radiological, biological, and chemical weapons attacks. In other words, if you have a chat GPT program and you ask it, how do I plan a nuclear attack? It could tell you, it could reason it out. It could generate, ideas and thoughts. Or the GPT-4 could aid in disinformation. It could aid hacking attacks. It could poison data to disrupt weapons systems, as well as escape from its computer into the public internet by writing its own code, because GPT-4 can write its own code, which, by the way, is putting a lot of code writers, out of work. Even the godfather of artificial intelligence, right, Dr. Jeffrey Hinton, is scared about the risks of smarter and smarter artificial intelligence. Hinton was the pioneer and the developer of neural networks. He worked at Google, and he quit his job in May 2023, the week before these statements came out, and so that he could speak about the risks of artificial intelligence. He now believes that large language models like GPT-4 might actually be more intelligent than humans and could be used maliciously to, alter elections and win wars, among other things. And of course, the Pentagon rejected the pausing of AI development. On May 23rd, right after these statements and the letters were issued calling for a pause, the Pentagon's Chief Information Officer, John Sherman, rejected the 6-month pause, stating, if we stop, guess who's not going to stop? Potential adversaries overseas. We've got to keep moving. Again, this statement reflects a mentality of an AI arms race, right? I mean, we can't stop, because if we do, the other side is going to beat us. It's going to get an advantage. So we have to keep developing, this technology. The mentality just promotes an ongoing arms race, artificial intelligence arms race. The arms race aspect of developing artificial intelligence technology was also recognized by Gladstone AI in a report to the U.S. State Department that was issued this past February. Gladstone AI was authorized by Congress at the end of 2022, after the concerns about GPT-4 were raised, to look into and issue a report on the risks of artificial intelligence. And so not only did the Gladstone report, recognize the existential threat posed by the advanced artificial intelligence technologies, but it also recognized the arms race aspect of it, and concluding that unless the competitive dynamics that underlie the development of artificial intelligence and the artificial intelligence arms race, unless these competitive dynamics are carefully managed, are controlled, right, there's a real likelihood, an increased likelihood of a global conflict and escalation of conflict. So the war in Ukraine offers a glimpse of AI's critical nature in current warfare, right? The US and NATO provide real-time battlefield and targeting information to Ukraine from remote satellites, drones, and secret platforms that is made possible through artificial intelligence programs developed by Palantir that are denominated algorithmic warfare. Basically, this information, tells NATO advisors and others outside of Ukraine, where are the Allied forces? Where is the enemy? What weapons will be most effective against the enemy positions? They collect this information and they send it to Ukrainian troops on the ground in order to fight the war. And the Pentagon itself has admitted that the Ukraine is a testing ground for artificial intelligence warfare, for algorithmic warfare and lethal autonomous weapons. Right, Dr. Mara Karlin, the Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Policy, stated that the Ukraine war is an extraordinary laboratory for understanding the changing character of war. I think a piece of that is absolutely the role of drones and also artificial intelligence. And likewise, the former U.S. Joint Chief of Staff, General Miley, put it more bluntly, saying algorithmic warfare is the ways wars will be fought and won for years to come. Again, let me just reiterate that all of this is cited to sources, and my sources are in the notes to these slides, which will be made available to you. Israel uses an AI system named the Gospel to produce bombing targets in Gaza. So it's not just in Ukraine, but also the conflict in Gaza relies on AI systems, right? According to the Israeli Defense Force website, Israel's Targeting Administrative Division uses an AI-based system called Habsora, which translates into English as the Gospel, in the Gaza war to produce targets at a fast pace, right? The system has been likened to a mass assassination factory. The former head of the IDF has stated that the Gospel AI system is a machine that produces vast amounts of data more effectively than any human and translates it into targets for attacks. So this is a short video clip of the Habsora AI system that I just want to play for you.
Israel's military commanders say its relentless airstrikes in Gaza has hit more than 22,000 targets since October the 7th. That is an average of 300 bombs being dropped every day. In the last few days, more details have come to light about the central role AI is playing in selecting targets, and with it, an increasing focus on whether that's part of the reason why civilian death toll in Gaza is so high. This is the bare detail we know from the Israeli military. Is a unit called the Target Administration Division, formed in 2019. In a short statement on the website, it says it uses an AI-based system called Habsora, the Gospel in English, in the war against Hamas to, quote, produce targets at a fast pace. Well, a group of investigative journalists have looked deeper at how it works, speaking to anonymous Israeli officials. And today's prospective guest is Yuval Abraham, a journalist at the Israeli-Palestinian publication Plus 792 magazine. First of all, Yuval, good to talk to you. Tell us what you found out about the Gospel. How does it work?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. So the Gospel is essentially, according to sources, a target machine. It automates most of the target creation process, creating targets with life and death consequences, as you said, at a rate that was before humanly impossible. Now, what it does is that it analyzes an amount of information that is so big that in the past, thousands of humans could not even process. Gaza is under Israeli occupation. Israel controls it, the airspace, the electromagnetic space, the land, and it has a lot of access to intelligence that way. It has an intelligence chokehold. Now, sources that I've spoken to that have operated the Gospel and have served in that center said that the emphasis was being placed on the quantity of targets, not on the quality of targets. They said the use of artificial intelligence is being an increasing trend in the military because in the past, the military ran out of targets in 2014 and in 2021. And this is viewed inside the military, according to sources, as a need to simultaneously be able to strike as many targets as possible, regardless of the particular military value of each target, in order to create a certain shock effect, according to sources, that places often civilian pressure on Hamas.
It's interesting, you mentioned a second ago just the previous conflicts where they were running out of targets, you said, for the airstrikes. I'll just quote some of your report saying that pre-2021, there were maybe 50 targets during a conflict. Actually, we're talking about 100. That was actually, there was a point in 2021, a brief conflict between Israel and Hamas where they were looking at 100 targets. I imagine it would be more than that now. And you talk about lower ranked operatives. So you're talking about as specific as the homes of lower ranked Hamas militants being targeted. But each of the Israeli officials say to you, it's accurate, don't they?
So there are 2 points here. With regards to the homes, it's a very good and horrifying example, I think, because what we're talking about is a policy of dropping a bomb that weighs 2,000 pounds on a home in order to assassinate one person, okay? Now, in the past...
So You can watch the rest of that video when you get the presentation and go to the link. But you know, the key point for me anyway, and I think for us, is that you're looking at an artificial intelligence program that looks at quantity and not quality of information, and that generates targets, you know, that are then sort of rubber stamped and acted upon. And you can imagine, you know, the error involved here, or you know, or the amount of people who are going to be killed on the basis of like some, you know, artificial intelligence program spewing out targets based on whatever information is being inputted to it by the Israeli military. So brain-computer interfaces and neuroprosthetics. If you remember from your high school science class, there are approximately 86 billion neurons in the human brain, and these comprise neural networks that communicate to each other, you know, electronically. The BCI, so a brain-computer interface, is an external device or a brain implant that allows the brain to transmit and receive information from an external source like a computer or a prosthesis. A neuroprosthetic is a device designed to interface with the brain to compensate for lost sensory or motor function. And the interface between the brain and the computer or other external device is possible by converting the brain's electrical neural signals to algorithms that are machine readable. There are current medical uses of neuroprosthetics, for example, cochlear implants, right, where a microphone placed behind the ear transmits sound by converting it to an electrical signal to an implant in the inner ear, the cochlea, and that implant then stimulates the optic nerve, the cochlear nerve that sends information to the brain. And likewise, a retinal implant, you have a camera that records video, processes it, and transmits the video in an electronic form to an implant in the retina, and that implant then stimulates the optic nerve that sends the information to the brain as sight. So current research on medical uses of BCI are, for example, the control using a BCI to control a robotic arm. You know, in 2006, you know, researchers implanted an array of microelectrodes into the brain of a quadriplegic that allowed the patient to use their thoughts to operate a computer cursor and direct a robotic arm. You have something called electronic skin, which is a polymer film embedded with sensors that can detect temperature, pressure, and vibrations, and they're wrapped around a prosthesis so that the person, the amputee that has the prosthetic limb, can sense things. And then you have, you know, brain-computer interfaces for people with locked-in syndrome, those who are paralyzed, but fully paralyzed, but still cognizant. Electrodes are implanted into the brains of these patients, and it allows the recording of their neural activity, so that, and that's then correlated by computer algorithms to words and that they hear or read. So this was a video on BCI implants at work, but I'm going to skip it in the interest of time. If anyone's interested, we can come back to it in the question and answer period. So the future of warfighting is going to require brain-computer interfaces. You know, future warfighting will require soldiers to collaborate with machines, with robots, drones, and satellites to make decisions in real time about battlefield conditions. A recent, you know, paper by the RAND Corporation on brain-computer interfaces for the and their military applications, you know, highlighted the collaborative relationship that is required between humans and machines in future warfighting. And in that context, the RAND talked about the potential applications of brain-computer interfaces and the reasons for that, which would be that, you know, the future soldier will have to digest and synthesize large amounts of data from an extensive network of humans and machines. The future soldier will have to make decisions more rapidly due to advances on artificial intelligence, enhanced connectivity, and autonomous weaponry. And the future soldier will have to oversee a greater number and types of robotics, including, you know, swarms of drones. So current research on the military uses of BCI by DARPA include the ability to control an aircraft and drones. For example, in 2015 and then in 2018, again, DARPA officials confirmed that a paralyzed individual equipped with a brain-computer interface could successfully command and control, not just one, but multiple simulated jet aircraft. And then DARPA, the military is developing helmets that assess cognitive performance. The Army is developing a helmet with electronic sensors to use to monitor the brain activity of the soldier, and the Air Force is doing likewise to develop a comprehensive cognitive monitoring system built into the pilot's helmet. And then you have BCIs being used for human-machine teaming to allow the human to think in real time with a computer by integrating the human thoughts or data into the artificial intelligence process conducted by the computer. And then you have brain-to-brain communications, which are non-invasive systems that read brain signals and transmit them over the neighborhood to a second user, and the second user then acts as a response to what the first person transmitting the signals is thinking about. Another program that the military is conducting is looking at enhancing the soldiers' capabilities, or developing super soldiers, right? It's the project looks at intervening in the biology of the soldier to minimize and eliminate weakness. And artificial intelligence facilitates the development of these biological technologies via biomedical nanotechnology, right? As one commentator has explained, right? So, the future soldier has to be internally armored, with psychopharmaceuticals and otherwise, so that they can fight and work for days on end without sleeping, eating, or drinking. So one of the current projects to develop the super soldiers, Project Inner Armor, which looks at environmental hardening the soldier and kill-proofing the soldier. Environmental hardening being allowing the soldier to excel in the world's harshest environments. In other words, in environments where there are threats of hypothermia, heat, and altitude sickness. Kill-proofing the soldier means developing universal immune cells that will protect the soldier from infectious disease anywhere in the world, as well as from chemical, biological, and radioactive weapons. And as part of these programs, the military is developing synthetic blood. It's the most promising technology being investigated. And it's basically developing an artificial red blood cell made from diamonds that could contain gases at pressures of nearly 15,000 pounds per square inch, and exchange carbon dioxide and oxygen the same way real blood cells do, right? So super soldiers, with these artificial red blood cells, trillions of them inside their body, would mean that they would never run out of breath, and they could spend hours underwater without any equipment. Another program is persistence in combat. This involves pain immunizations, so that once the soldier is wounded, they could still continue for 30 days by eliminating the inflammation that causes lasting agony after being wounded. So this is a clip of the soldier of the future that's put out by the U.S. Army's developing the current soldier. Let me play it for you.
Instead of just asking, how can we treat Leo's ankle? At MedStar Health, we ask,
Frank, we're not hearing or seeing the video.
So can you see this?
We see the slide. We see the slide, but if you want to share the video, you're going to have to stop your share and then share that separate window.
I see. Did you see the first video I played?
We heard it, but we didn't see it.
Right. Okay. So I have to stop sharing, right? Guide me through this. Stop sharing, right? And then do what?
Then you share again, and then you select the window of, I suppose, the YouTube video that you're trying to share.
Ah, okay. All right, so let me just then go back. Hold on. I don't want to do this. So. mm, No, I want to share. Where's the? I apologize for this. I'm not adept. So I'm trying to find the share. Um, there it is. All right. Do you see it now?
There you are.
Yeah.
But now, unfortunately, I don't think we're getting the audio.
You're not getting the audio.
No.
So,
You have to make sure that when you share it, you click Share Computer Sound.
okay, good. How are we now?
Working.
So you got it?
It is working.
Okay.
So I
So, so robots. So robots and lethal autonomous weapon systems. The Pentagon has been developing a wide range of robots for decades, ranging from autonomous weapon systems to cyborg insects to human and animal-like robots. So human-like robots are being developed for fighting, and animal-like robots are being developed for reconnaissance, carrying heavy loads, and guiding soldiers through difficult terrain. I was going to show you a video of military robots, but I'm just going to skip it for now, both in the interest of time, but we can come back to it if you're interested in watching it, and you can always watch it by going to the link once you get the slide. Autonomous weapons. Autonomous weapons are being described as the third revolution in warfare, the first revolution being gunpowder and the second one being nuclear weapons. Autonomous weapons are for all areas of the battle space. They're usually described as an unmanned something or other, and you have unmanned aerial vehicles by the Air Force and unmanned underwater vehicles and unmanned surface vehicles for the Navy. You have unmanned space vehicles for the Space Command, and then you have unmanned terrain vehicles for the Army. All of these are either being developed, being tested, or are actually in use. And lethal autonomous weapons, right, are basically, as the DoD describes them, weapon systems that once activated can select and engage targets without further intervention by a human operator. They include autonomous killer robots as well as autonomous drones and drone swarms. I was going to show you a video of the Switchblade and Phoenix drones that are being used in the Ukraine war. Let's see, maybe we can do that, but now I got to share, right? I got to stop share and then share again, right? So let me boot this up first. Stop there, and then go back to this, and then stop the share, and then share again, and do that, and get the sound, and we'll go. So this is the Switchblade US-made lethal autonomous weapon system that's been sent to Ukraine and that's being used in the Ukraine.
Any significant development in the ongoing conflict between Ukraine and Russia, the United States has supplied Ukraine with state-of-the-art Switchblade attack drones, bolstering the country's defensive capabilities. These advanced unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, are set to provide a tactical advantage to Ukrainian forces in their fight for sovereignty and territorial integrity. The decision to provide Switchblade drones comes as part of the United States' commitment to supporting Ukraine's defense and strengthening its ability to counter the threats it faces. These advanced attack drones offer a range of advanced features and capabilities that will significantly enhance Ukraine's operational effectiveness on the battlefield.
I never thought as a pediatrician that I would be at all useful in a war. My name is Seema Jalani.
The Switchblade is a flying drone with an explosive inside. These all-electric machines are weapons that will help find or attack nearby enemies, not far away ones. Switchblades come in two sizes, the Switchblade 300 and Switchblade 600. One person can carry both, though the weight difference is substantial. A 300 weighs just 5.5 pounds and can fit inside a backpack. The 600 is more extensive, with the missile weighing 33 obs and the components needed to transport it much heavier. The provision of Switchblade drones to Ukraine marks a significant step in the evolution of warfare, highlighting the growing importance of unmanned systems in modern conflicts. These advanced UAVs enable Ukrainian forces to gather crucial intelligence, track enemy movements, and conduct precision strikes on fortified positions, vehicles, and enemy combatants. The deployment of these drones aims to tilt the balance in favor of Ukrainian forces and improve their overall operational effectiveness. The Switchblade 300 can hit targets at a range of just over 6 miles and can fly for 15 minutes. The 600 has a range of 25 miles or a flight time of 40 minutes. The Switchblade contains cameras and video from these sensors, GPS information, and image processing is used to guide the Switchblade. The Switchblade is also designed to receive targeting information from other drones, allowing it to follow and find selected targets. That makes it one weapon among many that can be directed against a target with the targeting information provided by other drones.
So Israel also uses, oh wait, do I need to stop sharing? Are we good here?
You can just share your
I need to
slideshow.
stop. I need to stop sharing.
Nope,
Yeah.
just share your slides.
Okay. So Israel also uses lethal autonomous weapons in Gaza. Based on investigations, the Israeli army is using small killer drones fitted with machine guns and missiles from its Matrix and Lanius category, lethal autonomous weapon systems. Again, I was going to show you a video of Israel's Lanius, but I'll leave that to you to watch when you can go to the link and watch it when you get the presentation. Laws can also be used as weapons of mass destruction. Just think of equipping, one of these drones, right, or drone swarms with, chemical, biological, radiological, or nuclear weapons, or even equipping a small miniature insect drone that's undetectable, with a biochemical substance, and then, releasing a swarm of them, and the international effort to regulate lethal autonomous weapon systems is stalled. In 2017, a group of governmental experts formalized negotiations to regulate lethal autonomous weapons, under the auspices of the UN Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons. However, disagreement within the group on the level of human-machine interface and human control, as well as whether to ban the use of these weapons versus whether to ban the development of them, has stalled the negotiations. So, for example, the US, the UK, Australia, Israel, and Russia oppose banning the use of these weapons, while China states it supports banning their use but not their development. With a bit more detailed, the debate about the human-machine interface in lethal autonomous weapons has to do with, how much human interaction there should be with the weapon systems. For example, should humans be in the loop whereby they deliberate on the target before initiating the attack, or choose from a list of targets raised by a program? Should humans be on the loop, which means, the program selects the targets, but the humans have to approve the attack? Or should humans just be completely off the loop? There's no human involvement at all. The artificial intelligence program selects the targets and initiate attacks, without human involvement. The human control element of the debate has to do with the extent to which there should be human control, over the lethal autonomous weapon system in its life cycle, from development, research and development, to testing, to deployment and use. Obviously, human rights NGOs, believe and suggest that there should be human control across all the dimensions of these lethal autonomous weapons, beginning with the design of the weapons parameters and then its operational limits and the ways they'll be used, as well as appropriate human supervision in the decision-making of targeting. Human rights NGOs also want the negotiations to regulate lethal autonomous weapon systems to be conducted outside the auspices of the Convention on Certain Weapons. As the Campaign to Stop Killer Robots has stated, despite 10 years of discussions at the UN, right, there's been no agreement reached. And in the interim, militaries are being afforded free rein to develop and use autonomous weapon systems, absent clear legal rules in current wars. All of this means that there's a AI arms race underway, and we've been watching it and been subjected to it now for a number of years. The legal regulation of AI has yet to keep up with its military applications, right? There has not been a pause in the continued testing of advanced artificial intelligence, and current artificial intelligence guidelines allow for the research, development, and deployment of weapons using artificial intelligence. This artificial intelligence race that's underway between the hegemons of the world, the US, Russia, China, and even lesser hegemons, is subjecting humanity to increased insecurity and potentially extinction. The Gladstone report that I had mentioned earlier, recognized that a key driver of this AI arms race, right, is competition, among AI companies. As it says, as it concluded, a key driver is an acute competitive dynamic among artificial intelligence labs that are building the world's most advanced artificial intelligence systems. And even though executives and staff publicly acknowledge the dangers posed by advanced artificial intelligence, nonetheless, competitive pressures continue to push them to accelerate their investments in AI capabilities at the expense of safety and security. The tech billionaires are providing key AI services to the military. It's their companies that are involved in this competitive drive. Billionaires like Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Peter Thiel, and others, provide key AI services to the Pentagon. For example, in December 2022, the Pentagon awarded a $9 billion contract for its joint warfighting cloud capability, multi-cloud services to the four companies, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Oracle. Peter Thiel's company, Palantir, is now one of the Pentagon's top AI contractors, and it provides a range of services that include battlefield and intelligence applications of artificial intelligence. And the Pentagon's dependence on these billionaires' companies was starkly revealed, in my opinion, when Elon Musk refused to allow Ukraine to use his Starlink satellite system to bomb the Russian Black Sea Fleet with drone swarms back in 2022. So this is just a simple graph I put together of the tech billionaire investment in military AI. And you can see that, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, SpaceX, Starlink, are all involved in this, having been made significant investments, and they're receiving lucrative contracts, from the Pentagon. The way I look at this is that the attempts at regulation have not paused artificial intelligence technologies, right? They continue unabated. And so what's happening is that just like at the turn of the 20th century, the robber barons and the billionaires at that time ushered in an era of fossil fuel and fossil fuel industries, right, for our world without any debate and without any consideration of what would happen if we, built our culture and our society on fossil fuels 50 years later, 100 years later. And now we're living with the legacy of that and with the, with the results of that, which are, basically global warming, colonization and post-colonizations, and conflict. And so in the same way, at the turn of the 21st century, you have the billionaires of our time now ushering us into an era of artificial intelligence and a society based on artificial intelligence, without any debate, without any consideration of the consequences, 20, 50, 100 years from now. And it's like a train out of control. To quote Jethro Tull, it's a train, it won't stop going, and it's got no way to slow down. And look, so Douglas Rushkoff, in his book, The Survival of the Richest, The Escape Fantasies of the Tech Billionaires, has put his finger on this, and he talks about what he calls the tech billionaire mindset, which is that their mindset is that they're creating this world And they also are creating their own world where they want to escape the very conditions they helped to create, right? He describes the mindset as winning, meaning earning enough money to insulate themselves from the damage they are creating by earning money in that way. And that damage is, look, we have climate change, rising sea levels, mass migrations, nativist panic, resource depletion, and all of this, for them, the future of technology is about one thing, not only developing, these technologies at the expense of the earth, but also escaping from the rest of us. And in a way, his book raises the issue of, what are we to follow this mindset, or are we to resist this mindset? And obviously, the people in the military industry resistors network, have chosen to resist, this kind of mindset. To reiterate, I hope in that resistance we can also include the data centers and as well as the 10 companies in that. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions anybody might have. And let me just stop sharing. I'm happy to take any questions anybody might have, as well as to go back to any of the videos that I didn't show that one might be interested in.
Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot, Frank. That was a brain full of information. I think I need a bigger brain.
Yeah, I'm just sorry I'm not adept at switching back and forth, with the internet.
No worries. Especially since you're going to send the slides out and people can watch it on their own.
Yeah.
So that's great. So we're going to have Q&A. And in order to do that, you can see a couple people have raised their hands already. There's a reaction button at the bottom. And in that reaction, you can raise your hand. But before we get to that, as we have been doing for the past number of webinars, we're going to have an action component this evening that will only take a couple minutes, and Brian Garvey's going to lead us through that. So please, Brian.
Thanks, Ken, and thank you, Frank, for that presentation. Before we get to the Q&A, which is always my favorite part of the program, I just want to give folks a chance to take action. I work at Massachusetts Peace Action, and our whole motto, our whole mantra is we do community education to spur public advocacy and action. And one easy way that you can do that is by sending a message. Well, it's by complaining. It's by sending a message to your members of Congress saying how dissatisfied you are with the current state of the military-industrial complex's control over our politics, over our tax dollars, over our foreign policy. And as I'm sure most of the people on this call are, I'm incredibly concerned with the war in Gaza and our role here in the United States in funding Israel's war on Gaza. So if you click the link that I just put in the chat, you put your address in, takes about 30 seconds, maybe even less. And it will send a message to your senators and your representative in the House of Representatives. And it will send them a letter telling them to do three things. One, support a ceasefire. Two, oppose any more U.S. weapons being sent to Israel. And third, and this is incredibly important, I'm sure many of you know about it, but UNRWA, the United Nations agency that provides relief, provides aid, it's also one of, if not the largest employers in the Gaza Strip. As many of you know, UNRWA, the agency, was defunded by the U.S. Because of accusations that were made without evidence that a dozen members of the UN agency out of 13,000 employees participated in the October 7th attacks. Now, there was no evidence provided for this accusation, so little evidence that, in fact, the European Union has renewed aid to UNRWA because they said they didn't receive any evidence of these allegations. But the United States has yet to follow suit. Experts say that this is the only agency that could even approach the problem of the ongoing famine, man-made famine in Gaza. So we need to renew aid. Martha is quite correct in saying that Canada as well has followed the EU's lead and has renewed aid, but the United States isn't no longer sending aid; it's sending weapons. So please tell your members of Congress and your senators and your rep that you want them to do the opposite. So I hope you can take the time to do that, and let's get to your questions.
Okay, thanks, Brian. And yeah, it doesn't take but a minute to do it. I just did it while you were talking, so hopefully people will do that. All right, we're gonna but before I go to the raise hands, Brian, we asked you if you saw any questions in the chat to bring them forward. Maybe, I don't know if you noticed any in the chat or not, did you?
Well, let's get going with the first couple of hands, and then I'll come in with some
You can
questions
check
from
on
the
that.
chat.
Okay, good, thanks. So I'm going to select Warren Duzak first. Let's go to you, Warren. How about a question? And please make it a question, everybody. Excuse me, second, Warren. Please make it a question and not a long comment. So thanks. Go ahead.
Understood. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'm a socialist, and I've been accused, of course, as all socialists, accused of being a utopian. But Frank, it seems to me, and I'd like to hear your comment, it seems to me nothing can be more utopian than to believe that capitalism and the nation-state system, production for profit, Republicans and Democrats are going to save us from the horror which you have just outlined. I'd be interested to hear your comment on what you see as the political direction we need to take. Thank you.
Well, I think we have to have a nonviolent revolution and replace the Democratic and the Republican Party with a structure of government that's more conducive to equality and respect and dignity. And personally, I believe that the way to solve our problems are through local governance and through a kind of anarchic system where you have a limit on how much government can do, and where people are basically ruling themselves, and we have local businesses, local groups, and we respect and love our neighbors and our enemies. This is highly utopian in the conventional mindset, but I think that's where our salvation is, and short of that, I don't think we're going to get anything from the Democrats or the Republicans, and that we have to work to find another way, a way that demilitarizes our society, and that may come from some third party, or it may come from a radical element of the Democratic Party. I don't know, but it certainly won't come from the Democrats or the Republicans.
Hey, let's see. I'm just going to select got 4 hands raised. How about Gary Goldston? You were there right from the beginning. Go ahead.
Yes, the gospel system you describe being used by Israel is a system that you say does targeting, figures out targets. Does it also use weapons to act on those targets, or it just instructs some other system?
It instructs some other system. So, whether it's like humans on the other end receiving the targets and saying, okay, we've got our list of 30,000 targets, let's go get them. But it's just an artificial intelligence system that, that gives you targets based on whatever information they are. And I suspect that this is part of the reason why so many people have been killed in the Gazan war, because like I think the reporter said, before you had 100 targets because humans were, evaluating targets, and now you've got a computer giving you, thousands of targets.
Of course, if it is also coupled to automatic
Yes.
weapons, then we're really in trouble.
Yes, we are, and Israel uses lethal autonomous weapon systems that may not be coupled to human. They may be entirely autonomous. So yeah, that's a good point. A good point you make.
Thank you, Gary. So Quanta, let's have your comment and question.
Thank you very much. I was wondering, I mean, this seems like a very simple question, but why is it that these technologies are not employed in creating scenarios how we can have consultative process to resolve conflicts without violence? I mean, can they not have a program like that? Why is it that male mind goes into violence in terms of resolving conflicts? And where are the women? Because, I mean, I see everything is controlled by males, even the conversations. There is a problem. So what can we do to change that rather than having women one side and screaming like code pink and going to the senators and congressmen? Why can't we work together so that we can have a balanced system that is not just about violence?
Yeah, so that's a very good point, Quanta. And actually, AI systems are being used for non-conflict and in conflict resolution. And I apologize for not including it in the presentation. I was just reading about it a couple of weeks ago. But they are being used in the sense of negotiations and ideas for negotiations to resolve conflict. They're also being used in terms of sensing and monitoring refugee camps for potential conflict or to stop conflict. So it is being used in a nonviolent way, but obviously it's more lucrative in the area of the military. That's where all the money is, and all of these artificial intelligence tech companies are in it for the money. You know, they're not altruistic, you know, so and I think that's why it's being used more for violence and for nonviolence, as well as you say, because it's basically a bunch of white males running the whole thing too. So yeah.
Good, Quanta. Thank you. How about Robin Schulman? Go ahead, Robin.
Thank you. Thank you, Frank. I am horrified, and I imagine most people learning this tonight are horrified. I think it was Al Jazeera the other day showed a boy walking his bicycle through the streets of Gaza. And I'm assuming this is accurate, but fact check me on it. And the report was that and he got blown up, that an Israeli AI device thought it was his bicycle was a rocket launcher and blew him up. I don't know if you've heard this. I just thought I would ask if you have any comments about the frequency of that type of thing happening. Kind of relates to the question 2 questions ago. Thank you.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it, but I believe it, right? And all I can say is, you know, look, I mean, we know that artificial intelligence program, systems make mistakes. I mean, you just have to look at, you know, facial recognition and the development of facial recognition that mistakes, pictures of one person for another kind of person, or, you know, mistakes a dog for a cat. So, I mean, I don't know the extent of this. But I would think that it's, you know, not insubstantial. The problem is that it's hard to get any data from the Israeli military or from Israel for that matter at all about, okay, what type of weapon system was used against this person or what, because the Israelis don't talk, so it's difficult to get this information in the first place. But yeah, I think that AI systems are not perfect and they make mistakes. This is why there's so many people are dying, I think, in Gaza, so thank you for your question.
Thank you, Robin. Okay, Jeffrey, go ahead. Jeffrey Barkle?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
That was a great presentation you made. I've been again. I'm kind of for this as well. This is why I believe we should transfer our status as a superpower to the United Nations before it's too late to prevent a future where to prevent a future as saw in both the Matrix and the Terminator. So if you want to do some, so if you want to raise that concern, use a hashtag called Remember the Terminator or Remember the Matrix. That'd be a good way to spread this message along.
You have a question, Jeffrey?
What do you think of the idea? What do you think of the idea?
Well, I think that spreading the message of the dangers and the risks and the threats of artificial intelligence are very necessary, and to do that. So yeah, I agree. And you know, I know that the Matrix and the Terminator may be science fiction, but you know, science fiction has a way of coming about. You know, you can just look back, you know, 50 years at what was science fiction, and you know, you have it today. And you know, the future may be that way. And whether reality mimics art in our world so that we become what we project on movie screens, you know, I mean, I don't discount that, unfortunately. You know, I think it goes back to, you know, how do we build a world that's not violent? And you know, it takes a lot of work, and we may not even get there. But, you know, I mean, it's our job, at least I think so, to try and to do so. So, yeah, I think spreading the message is fine.
Good. Let's see, David Hartsoe there. Go ahead, David.
Thanks, Frank, for a very helpful but also horrifying presentation. Do you see any hope, or where is there any hope that this AI arms race can be stopped before, you know, we're all finished?
Yeah, well, it's the same hope that we have to stop nuclear weapons, and the same hope we have to stop, you know, global warming. I mean, which is our hope is in community, and our hope is in, you know, people, you know, working together to build a nonviolent world. You know, and whether that hope comes out of a sense of a, you know, a spiritual, you know, sort of insights, or whether it comes from a humanist insight. You know, the fact is that, you know, if we want to survive, you know, like Dr. King said, we have to embrace nonviolence. Otherwise, we're going to perish, you know, and annihilate ourselves. So I do think that our hope is in building a nonviolent world.
So where would you encourage all of us to really kind of step into this arena to try to stop this?
Well, you know, there are so many issues and things. I think, you know, you can step into the arena anywhere, locally, you know, nationally. You can step into it in terms of, you know, demonstrations, civil disobedience, writing to Congress. I think, to me anyway, I think the important thing is to be part of some community that resists the empire in the many forms you can resist an empire, non-violently, of course. And so that, you know, could mean sort of any number of groups, any number of local communities or national communities. Yeah, just get engaged. Just get engaged. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Sure.
Thank you, David. I see 3 more hands. That might be a good way to end with just 3 more questions. Getting late in the night here. Let's do Susan Oler next. Go ahead, Susan.
Okay, I had to unmute myself apparently. My question is this: I can see how these could be used as offensive weapons. Can you give us examples of how they could be used as defensive weapons?
Well, sure. I mean, you know, like some of the drones, like the Switchblade drones, could be used to stop missiles from coming into you know, a city. You know, the same with any of the other weapon systems. And like I said before, artificial intelligence systems could also, help in creating conflict resolution. So they could be used defensively, and some may be being used defensively. But, whether it's defensive or offensive, you still have got a war going on where people are being killed, and where the issue is, something that could be resolved without violence.
Okay, thank you, Susan. And Donna Bosco, go ahead.
Hi. I actually, for once, wasn't going to ask a question. But in response to, I'm sorry, I don't remember her name, the woman who mentioned, where's the female voice? And with your wonderful presentation, by the way, bringing up the fact that the nuclear war was the introduction of nuclear was a big part. Well, I happen to have been part of that resistance and had the privilege of having Barry Commoner, who was a front runner and pioneer of that era, come to our college. And what he said, in addition to what you're saying about building community and protesting and all of that, I think I might have a suggestion that is sort of in the middle and somewhat different. And it's Barry Commoner's, not mine. But at that time, he said, if you want GM to stop polluting the air, you don't go to them and say, stop doing it because it's not nice and it's not good for children and the earth. He said, you have to find, and you made the point, we all know that this is all about money. He used the term, find the golden thread, the thread that connects what you want to what they want. Now, in that scenario, he suggested you go to the president or, the head of GM and say, look, dealing with auto emissions is the wave of the future. You're going to have to do it. Why don't you make yourselves the first ones to do it and make yourselves, a name in that way? I don't know what the equivalent would be in this situation, but I felt like I wanted to share that because I have used that even in my life a lot. You can't tell people to do something because it's right. You have to understand what their motivations are. So it's not a question, but it's a response to what others have said. And I hope it's of some use. I hope somebody smarter than me and more knowledgeable than me can take that example and maybe think of that as another thing we can do as a form of action.
Thank you, Donna. Frank, do you have a response to that?
No, I think it was well put and well said. So, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, I see one more hand, so let's make this our last question. Vivian Weinstein, it looks like. Go ahead.
There you go. Okay, hi. Here I am in Denver, Colorado. So anyhow, I just wanted to say one little thing, just watching, I learned a lot. This is just really very difficult to comprehend, how this whole idea of artificial intelligence, but it is the future, and not only in warfare, but also in health and in a lot of other things. But anyway, just watching what's going on in Ukraine, I know that the Russians have, all kinds of these weapons are being flown around, particularly drones and unmanned type of, aerial things. And the Russians have been able to actually stop them and not just blow them up or, but land them and capture them. So it's kind of something, it's like, you just figured something out. Okay, we got a problem here and we're going to solve it. Now we're going to get your drone, capture you. This is just another way, to hint that they're handling it in a warfare situation. So just because you have another big toy doesn't necessarily mean it's going to, totally overpower your enemy. They're going to think about, wait a minute, how can I figure out how to stop this thing? And so I know there's a very large drone. I've seen so many pictures of it. It's a really huge drone, American drone that's made. I can't remember the name of it, but they've been able to actually stop it. And this is something relatively new. They stop it and they can turn them around. They can have them go in the opposite direction, interfere with however they're programmed to work. Okay. And the other thing is they they've also taken a hold of some of the satellite, the Starlink channels. They don't just blow them up. They've actually captured some of them, and they can use them for their own purposes. So it's kind of, like your technology can sometimes not just that mean that you're going to win in a situation. You may actually, your enemy, so to speak, may pick up your technology and advance on it or whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, no, and that's what drives the arms race. So yeah, no, thank you for that. So I just want to say, like,
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. I just want to say that, look, don't misunderstand that what I'm saying is that artificial intelligence is bad, because, as I showed in the brain computer interface and in some of the other slides, there's a lot of uses that artificial intelligence is put at, that benefit people, medically and otherwise. But what this is about are the military uses of artificial intelligence, and an arms race that's developing, increasingly more dangerous systems that are autonomous, and that scientists, really don't know a lot about and are scared. So, but there are good uses to artificial intelligence, and we see that in our world. So I just want to make that distinction. That's all. So yeah.
All right. Thank you, Frank. I think that's a good place to stop.
Okay.
And
thank you, everybody.
So everybody, please be mindful that I will send out a follow-up email in a couple days. It'll have the recording in it, and it'll also have Frank's slides, PDF of Frank's slides. And please remember that we're going to do our monthly webinar again next month with Jeremy Kuzmarov on the influence of Russia and the United States and the relationship between them. So again, thanks, Frank. This was great. And thanks you all for participating. And yeah, let's keep on, as Frank says, in a nonviolent but serious resistance. So
thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ken and Brian. Good night.
Good night, y'all.